Welcome, everyone. This is the Ends Justify the Memes, the show where the lowest of the low, that is the most wretched of wretched and deplorable, to end all deplorables, two heterosexual Christian males from the American South talk about philosophy, history, health, fitness, and what it means to be a man in the 21st century. I'll be your host, Bill, and this is my co host and producer, Tank. So, crack open a beer and lend us your ear because the ends always justify the memes.
Woo!
That isn't beer, Tank.
It's not. No, I'm drinking some scotch tonight, and all of my scotch glasses are dirty, so it's right out of the bottle.
Are you a scotch connoisseur? Because I like scotch, but I really know nothing really about scotch other than I like peaty scotch.
Well, this
So,
is so I sort of a connoisseur. I've had enough at this point that I could tell you a little bit about it. But if you like peaty scotches, that's usually the ones people don't like, so you're doing pretty good.
yeah. No, I mean, if it can taste like a campfire, it's good for me. My dad had some really good stuff. I had a couple sips of over the holidays. I think one of the holidays. I don't even remember when. Um, Summer holidays, if I'm not mistaken. Um, but I was at a wedding the other week, and it was open bar, and I was like, "Well, do you guys have any peaty scotch?" And the bartender looked at me like she had no idea what I was talking about. I'm like, she's like, "Well, we have this brand over here," and I was like, well, I'm not really an expert. I was just asking. Otherwise, whiskey's fine. And she's like, well, you want to try it? And I tried it. And I was like, this doesn't, what is the difference between this and if I got like Jameson? I couldn't tell, and so I ended up getting Woodford Reserve, which is a pretty
Mhm.
good whiskey. And then I asked her for a martini. And I told her, I said, I wanted a dirty martini. I said, I wanted a classic dirty martini. And she's like, "What kind of vodka?" And I said, "No, gin and vermouth." And it's the only fancy drink I ever drink, and I usually
Right.
have like one if I do. But then she didn't have any brine, and then she asked me, she's like, "Would you want olives?" I'm like, "What kind of bartender are you?" Like, I told you, give me a classic dirty martini.
Yeah, some places are like that though. All they do is make like weird slushy drinks and girl shooters and stuff. They're not used to like these old school things. But yeah, I mean, as far as Scotch goes, like you have for the most part you have Highlands and you have Islas, and Islas are your more peaty Scotches. That's your Lagavulin or Freud. I think this is Isla, Talisker, and a few others. And those are the ones that taste like salt water and campfires. And then your Highlands are a little sweeter. They still have a little bit of smoke, but they're not near like what some of these other ones are.
Yeah, well, I could probably enjoy that, but
Yeah.
I just never really got into it because
Hmm.
it's sort of expensive, and I was always more into beer.
Yeah.
And liquor seems to be, for me at least, way too energizing. Like, and then
Yeah.
very hard crash and not feeling
Hmm.
very good the next day.
Yeah.
So
I've been
I
there.
tend not to drink liquor. Um, but if I do, it's usually scotch on the rocks or some sort of whiskey, and um, at least anymore, as as I've come into my maturity as a man. That's why I drink PBR now.
There you go.
Come full circle. Came all the way from MGD, and then Yingling, and then all them German beers. I mean, German beers are awesome. German purity
Hmm.
law.
Hmm.
You can't beat a freaking you can't beat a Salvatore double Bock. That
Hmm.
is Paul Ander's double Bock, probably my favorite. There's a bunch of different double Bock companies, but that's probably my favorite. Hard to beat. They have a great Oktoberfest beer as well. Um, but I have all these giant glasses, like literally like 32-ounce glasses that are like Steins, because I used to buy these big old cans and they would come with the glass. Um, but in any case, man, that's enough enough man talk. Enough talk about drinking. We got some meme cast news to get into, don't we?
Let's go.
All right.
Woo! me pull the article up here.
It's more of a meme than an article.
There we go. Hey, all right. We got it pulled up.
All right. Well, I don't see it on the stream, but there it is. Ha
Yeah,
ha!
it's a
As
little
soon
bit
as
of
I
a
pull
delay.
that. Yeah, I know. But we got the old Batman meme slapping Robin for wishing everyone a happy Veterans Day. Screw you all you veterans. The Marine Corps comes first to fight. So yesterday was the Marine Corps birthday, and hoorah, devil dogs, all the Marines out there, anyone watching and listening, brothers in arms, and happy Veterans Day to all of the vets out there and people that gave their lives. I'm not going to put on a big thing about you gave your lives for the freedom of others because maybe you did and maybe you didn't, because a lot of these wars aren't about that. But either way, you did serve, and there is nobility in that. So that's all I wanted to say about that. The next thing we got going on, though, apparently the DNC is heavily into Magic the Gathering, and they threw out the ballot necromancer. It says whenever an opponent summons a creature that casts a Republican vote, summon 2/0/1 black blue decreased voter zombie token, which each cast one Democrat vote. I have no idea what all that means. I haven't played Magic since I was like a teen, so we're talking 20 years. But I I do know that is uh this is rampant right now, at least on the voter rolls. We don't know if these votes got thrown out or not, but we do have all the Biden voters. This is yeah.
I'm
It's
really
funny because this one.
I'm really
Good.
surprised how good Biden did with the 120-year-olds.
Yeah, there was some interesting statistics with anyone over 90. There was a great deal of voter turnout for people over 90. Now, if people aren't aware, you'll see that there are a lot of people that will go to old folks' homes or work in old folks' homes, and they'll essentially take senile people and cast their votes. And you could say, well, Bill, that's speculation and conspiracy theory. And yet, we have proof of this happening in the past. And when the numbers go up like they did, folks, especially in these swing states, it's highly suspect. Of course, then we have people actually literally rising from the dead. So if we hit the next meme, it says, I gotta go. He's like, crap, I gotta go vote.
Now we know that this dead guy mailed in his ballot. He did not have to get out of the casket.
Yeah. I wonder, though, wherever they got this picture, who tries out a casket? Don't get me wrong. I was at a Halloween party a few years ago, and it was like an all nighter and then some. And I finally passed out, and they had a casket there, which they then decided to bury me in, which was fine. Because I got some sleep after that I needed after a long night of partying. Something I don't do much anymore,
I'm gonna test
but
drive a
that was an
casket.
interesting party. Yeah. I mean, dude, it was a interesting several hundred people, interesting location, just a random party I got invited to. And I was like, why not? I never do anything. I haven't done something like that since I was a teen. And sure enough, man, that's awfully small on the screen. But
Yeah.
what we got here is a Biden Harris voter. Now, funny is I've been holding on to this meme for weeks, and I've been trying to get it on the show, and I just thought it wasn't good enough. But finally, perfectly relevant as we have the voting dead that once rose again from the grave to vote for Biden because this election was so important.
Mm.
And then we have Forrest and Bubba. Bubba saying, Forrest, if I die, don't let me vote for Biden.
Well, you will, bro. It's not up. It's not up to you. It's gonna happen.
I did have a George Floyd meme of this next one, but I decided in good taste I wouldn't use it. And then instead, Jeffrey Epstein, of course, he voted for Biden. Biden's probably on his flight log somewhere.
I'm sure.
Um,
Uh,
from what I understand, all the flight log people all voted Biden, actually, or supported him, endorsed him. I can't say if they actually voted for him or not. And then, of course, we have Biden thanking all of those. for their votes because without it, he couldn't have made it. All right. So now we get into actual potential fraud or whatever you'd want to say about it. Illegitimacy, we could say. And it says, and I said, if you don't find more votes, we're not going to win this election. Well, son of a bitch, we found more votes. Of course, if
Yeah.
you recall, this was in front of the Council of Foreign Relations that Biden said the same thing to the Ukrainian president about the investigations against Burisma. The same thing that they impeached Trump over,
Talking about
which
the.
was absolute
Are
nonsense.
you accusing Joseph Biden of quid pro quo with Ukraine?
I'm accusing Joe Biden of being a part of the deep state swamp, if you would. So we have Republican voters and we have Democrat voters here. Count every vote. This is really funny because yesterday on All Minus One, folks, first plug, I remember today. Um, that is my regular YouTube channel, my all by myself YouTube channel without Tank over here producing with his wonderful job. I covered a brief quote from Christine Pelosi, who said, Democrats believe that everyone who can vote should vote, and Republicans believe that only those people who should vote can vote. And I thought, well, yeah, because anyone can vote. I could get my 16-year-old daughter to vote as the Democrats would like. I could get dead people to vote. I can get senile people to vote. I could get uneducated people to vote. I can get all kinds of people to vote. I want people to vote if they have the right to vote and they're educated. I think if you're not educated on the issues, you shouldn't vote. I actually didn't vote in the last few local elections, not here recently. I voted in the midterms and here in the last presidential election, but before that, because I just wasn't familiar enough with this area's politics yet since I had moved here. And I think that's an intelligent thing to do. Um, Voting down party line is how you get tyranny, folks. So I don't know. You got anything to add to that, Tank?
You know, yeah, I agree. Only those that should vote, or whatever the quote was. You know, like if you're
They said
dead,
anyone who can. Whoa, what
yeah,
does can mean?
you know, if you're dead, you probably shouldn't vote. Um,
Right.
if you've already voted in a different county, you probably shouldn't vote in another county.
If you
Uh,
voted once before, you shouldn't vote again, right?
yeah,
Vote twice.
I don't think that's too unreasonable of a suggestion.
No, no. Here we have the FBI doing their best to investigate. This is what the F? I hope this isn't like it looks. Yup, it's definitely a noose.
It's got
And of course we have,
a little bit of a mixture there on that one.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's old news, but yeah, we
Yeah.
have Biden ballots in the background there. So it's a pretty good meme though, because that made me think there was a new South Park episode out, and yet there is not. They've not put anything out. It's annoying. They had the pandemic special, and that was it. What's going on, South Park? Come on, Matt and Trey. All right. So if you all recall this wonderful scene, can I get this pulled up? There we go. From The Simpsons, you got what's his name? Chalmers or whatever, the superintendent.
Yeah.
He's like, "What's happening in there?" He says, 140,000 Biden ballots. 140,000 Biden ballots at this time of night in this part of the country, localized entirely within your polling place. Yes. May I see them? No. And that is another issue. Poll observers have not been allowed to go in. In fact, we have pictures of people putting cardboard or poster board or whatever to block out windows. It's absolutely insane. And they might get away with it. We'll see how the courts deal with it. Of course, I just thought this was a nice illustration of that sudden jump. Look at Biden. Just he's so light on his feet.
Funny how that works out.
And then the Babylon Bee. Experts call for 15 days of counting to flatten the curve for votes for Trump.
Oh, ooh,
I had
yeah,
some Trump fake tweets, but I could not fit them in without getting way over the limit here. So I thought Nancy Pelosi was good enough. She says if Trump thinks he can steal this election that we work tirelessly to steal, he has another thing coming. I like how it's at 6:66
yeah.
a.m.
I just noticed that. Oh,
Man, you really if you guys don't know, you really need to go on the United spot. I don't actually like how they changed their animation, but if you go back, they make Nancy a drunk and she
yeah.
speaks with a slur and she's always going, because her dentures are always popping out. Ah, it's amazing.
Good morning,
So,
Sunday
yeah, what do we
morning.
say about this other than the classical pissing contest? It's a pretty interesting stream Joe's got going on there.
Some might say mathematically impossible, but what do I know?
Yeah, I mean, you're just a plebe, right? You're
Yeah.
just a nobody, a wheel in the cog of the overlords. And just a little white pill here. You are here, hopefully.
Yeah, I've seen some around. I guess we'll talk about that later, but we'll
Yeah,
talk.
we'll get into it.
Yeah.
So, and then we have those who spent the last 4 years convinced there was election interference are now saying there's no way election could be rigged. Yeah, the whole Russian collusion thing, which is, by the way, completely debunked. They bought some ads, whatever. You can talk about certain groups, whatever. When all that was going on, the DNC started the fake news meme. They started that sounder. They started the Russian thing, all that, and Trump kind of turned it around on them. And then they just had to double down on the Russian thing. But the reality is, what we know from Dr. I believe Robert Epstein, what we know is that social media and Google have far more power and influencing elections than any foreign agency. And if you look at the numbers recently, and again, I've covered this on All Minus One at one point or another, the the spine and interference is like astronomically. We're talking about like 100 more times, 1,000 more times from China, not Russia, folks. And even with that, there's more interference from Iran than there is from Russia in general, as far as bots, fake accounts, spreading propaganda, whatever else. But honestly, is that a big deal? Because you're going to get that anyways from the American populace. Hell, you're getting it from us. Not that I'm trying to spread propaganda or anything, but
I
I'm just
am.
saying. Yeah,
I,
you
I,
are.
I definitely am.
You all your Kaczynski propaganda.
Yeah.
All right. So if you're okay with Facebook and Twitter fact checking posts, then you should have no problem with the United States of America fact checking votes.
And yet they do. Isn't that strange?
Yeah, I was on I had a screenshot. Tim Pool put up an actual like MSN thing looking at the count totals and how it was weird, how there were more voters than there were whatever. And Instagram fact checked his post and he put it back up. And he's like, they're fact checking my fact check. I wonder if they're going to fact check my fact check of them fact checking. I love it everywhere. It's like there's these little disclaimers. Well, the election integrity, see how election integrity is held together and voter fraud is prevented. It's like, dude, you can repeat this all you want. Does not make it true. But that's kind of what we're going to talk about tonight. So here, real quick, 138 ballots mysteriously found, all 100% for Biden as he was losing. That is a true fact. That did happen. Uh, North Arlington, New Jersey ballots found in dumpster. Essex County, Essex County, New Jersey ballot found in dumpster. Atlanta ballots found in dumpster. Kentucky dumpster. California dumpster. Pennsylvania dumpster. Windows being blocked at ballot counts. Mostly Republican ballot watchers forced to stand 25 feet away. Republican ballot watchers forcefully removed. That also happened. Dems only stating they have ballot watchers pretending to be Republicans. I haven't seen anything about that, but we'll go with that. It says poll station workers. taking people's pens and giving them Sharpies. I don't think the Sharpie thing's that big of a deal, honestly, but whatever.
Mhm.
Um, Biden's ballots forged with dead people's names in Michigan, New York, Pennsylvania, Los Angeles, and Nevada. Let's not forget the ones that didn't vote down ticket. They only voted for the president, and they were all or majority Biden, like overwhelmingly, apparently.
Mhm.
And then you have the lefties going, "Ha ha, cope, cope, you loser, copium."
The thing I hate most about that meme, I don't even hate the meme. It's that it's obviously they took like a right wing meme and just made it left wing. It's like, can you guys just not come up with your own memes?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Well,
but
that's a. This is actually, yeah. I would actually think this is a left wing meme. I don't know. I mean, this whole thing is like a big long list.
mhm.
Obviously, it's not that funny, but it is listing what is going on.
Yeah.
Something they did ignore here also was um well, I know I just mentioned at the end there that they had well, no. Sorry. They had I did mention at the end there that they had the single voters, no down ticket voting. But on
Mhm.
top of that, they also had like um a ridiculous amount of 90 plus year olds voting more than usual. You have higher than normal voter turnouts or voter rolls. Like we're talking about 90% and upwards wise, which is unusual. All kinds of stuff. All kinds of stuff. So we have here Biden when someone or Biden Homer when someone asks me why I don't trust the government. MK Ultra, Operation Northwoods, Operation Paperclip, Operation Fast and Furious, Operation Mockingbird, Tuskegee experiments, Waco, Ruby Ridge, JFK, NSA Spine, Building 7, Gulf of Tonkin, Chicago Black Sites, Flint Water Crisis, Iran Contra, Gary Webb, NDAA, Patriot Act, Bilderberg Group, Bohemian Grove, Abu Ghraib, Gitmo, and look, there's a ton more. My question is why the hell do you trust the government at all, folks? How naive? Honestly, I just think you're naive, or you have to trust the government because uh, your world will be blown away. It's just easier for you. I mean, I don't have any other solutions to that. There's way too much evidence of general corruption and power, mismanagement, misuse over the years. And then here in the home stretch, we have the State of the Union. And freaking libertarians, man. And I mean, I'm a libertarian person, very much so, but you guys are a dumpster fire because this meme is absolutely true. It's like getting a reward. Libertarians biting that gold. Libertarians flipping everyone off, shaking that champagne, and then it's like third place with 1%. And the votes, if split even, but the votes that could have went to Trump could have put him over the edge, even with this cheating. Um, but even if it's split, it probably would have shored a lot of things up. And look, guys, if you want to vote for third party, like by all means, vote your conscience. I think it's usually better just not to vote. But like Joe Jorgensen is look, there's been no good libertarian candidate since Ron Paul was a libertarian candidate. Gary Johnson was all right. He was all right. He wasn't the worst. He at least had some experience. But when Joe Jorgensen's like, "Oh, I back BLM," it's like, okay, so you back communism as a libertarian? Oh, you're one of those left wing libertarians. Ah, I get it. You're the ones that you don't believe in property rights. I don't know how you believe in liberty without property rights, but sure. All right. So less of a meme here and more just people putting in the data. The difference between if dead people vote, women vote, men vote, just all white people, just all white women, um, college educated whites, says non college educated whites, and then white men. So in every scenario other than women and dead people, Democrat. And then at the bottom says minorities, talks about people of color and always blue. However, there's another anomaly in this election. Historic Hispanic and black vote for Donald Trump. Why
Yeah,
hasn't he won?
that's a little that's a little suspect. Um, that he seemed to increase everywhere and still somehow come out losing, quote unquote.
Yeah, that I don't remember what it is, but I think it's like 15%. I think get it's something like that. I could be mistaken. Excuse me. Something like 15% of the black vote. If you get that alone, Democrats won't win anywhere. No, I think that's as a whole across the nation. So there could be isolated spots, some more, some less. But I don't recall what Trump pulled, but it was more than 15%. I think it was upwards near 20. Um, People haven't been focusing on that a lot because the big thing to focus on here is the election fraud. But again, another little white pill, folks. Remember, this took 37 days to resolve in 2000. This was the first presidential election that I voted in, and Bush won in court. Now, Bush ended up being a snake in the grass and not being anything that he said he was going to be. Don't get me wrong, I think 9/11 pushed him that way, but the fact that he had basically the deep state as a cabinet, that didn't help. And then finally, we have old Lady Liberty saying, "I can't believe this crap." So I know you've been standing a long time. You should take a load off there. Um, I don't know, man. Play that outro. We'll get into talking about this stuff.
Okay. All right.
All right, all right, all right. Oh, Matthew McConaughey.
So, I guess we talked about it kind of last week about the election. But I think it's all right. So anyone who's paying attention realizes that this has been rigged.
Or anyone who has an honest bone in their body.
Yeah. So where do we go? Like, where do we go from here? Well, let me back it up. So the thing that's getting me the most is, democracy worldwide, wherever it's practiced, there's been rigged elections. I don't know if we talked about this last week, but the BBC back in like 2015 or 14 or something wrote an article on how to spot rigged elections. And some of the things that it said were like telltale signs was if people just stop counting when one person is ahead, and then all of a sudden, they start counting again, and there's some other person, like just all the shit that we saw
Near 90% voter turnout.
Yeah, all these things. And
a lot of people making content use that article. I end up doing the same, just as a little frame. Yesterday in the video I put out yesterday. Interestingly, a rebuttal I saw to that was, I was like on Twitter or something like that, was, well, this article only pertains to countries in Africa.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, right. So democracy can only be rigged in Africa, guys. Sorry. All those anomalies.
Well, I mean, the article was about Africa. Don't get me wrong, but they were just being in general, right?
Yeah. But and that's the thing is, like, for all the things that we've saw with, I've seen the statistical anomalies or whatever, but my thing was, and still is, Georgia. They stopped counting in Georgia when Trump was ahead because a water line broke. In the age of smartphones, no one took a picture of this broken water line. And then all of a sudden, at 4 a.m., they start counting again. That's I don't believe that. Like, I don't believe there was a broken water line. I think they were fucking around.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to say, but there'll be records, and that's why this stuff needs to go to court. In Pennsylvania, the 4 a.m. ballot drop off. Well, they were past the date. We have affidavits now of, well, in one case, is it Michigan or Wisconsin? I can't recall. But Viva Fry did a video over the court case where they have 7 witnesses. We're seeing AGs all over the place get involved. We are seeing, according to the RNC, they have 11,000, 11,000 people willing to testify now, sign affidavits. At some point, unless the courts, and there, trust me, there are a lot of liberal judges who will throw this out because, or biased judges, I would say. But at some point, they, this has got to be looked at by the court and being like, whoa, we either need a revote or a complete audit. Now, right now, Georgia is doing a complete recount by hand, which, thank God. Um, there was the whole glitch situation, which apparently was user error, not a glitch. I don't know how the uh the two happened, but does user error mean that someone manipulated that data?
Then that's not an error, is it? That's you did it on purpose.
Right, right. Well, how do you manipulate the data? Interestingly, I just sent you this on the D Live. I don't know if you can bring it up because I know you're not really geared up to bring up articles right now, but uh, on the video I made yesterday, someone commented on the what, because I sent it as a premiere. It was like a live stream chat. I didn't see it till I pulled it back up today, but they commented about the postal service talking about doing a blockchain, and I had not seen anyone covering this. So thanks for that individual out there for covering it, Tom somebody. But in any case, but I appreciate it because I had not seen that, and trust me, man, my wife yells at me because all I do is listen to news all day long and read stuff while I'm listening to news at the same time. So she gets a little burnt out on it. But before the election, knowing that they could not implement this for this election, they wanted to do this, which is interesting because it means that somebody had some foresight about this, especially given, and the Forbes article is like, I have some issues with Forbes. Forbes used to be pretty good. Forbes has gone really left, and I know why they've gone left because Steve Forbes himself, I was in a room like literally freaking 6 feet away from him talking, giving a little lecture or whatever. And Steve Forbes himself, he said one of the ways that we've innovated is by outsourcing to people. We basically get independent contractors. Well, unfortunately, that's brought the quality of Forbes down. And I really didn't get to push him on it, nor was I really trying. But um, like they've gone really left wing, and they used to be conservative slash moderate. And the reason why is because they outsource a lot of their articles. But regardless, this person in this article points out the post office is reluctant to innovate, and they're talking about it. But why didn't we talk about this back at the beginning of COVID? Why couldn't we get this gone? Why couldn't they inject some money through Congress? And again, I don't like a lot of federal spending and these kind of projects and whatever else, but this whole election debacle has been set up from the beginning. There was no reason why we couldn't have open and fair elections. Fauci said we could. Dr. Burke said we could. Obviously, you can go to the grocery store. Obviously, people are going back to work, not completely, whatever. But um, obviously we can have peaceful riots and murders in the streets, and then of course people shouting and cheering for Biden this past weekend because he won only according to the mainstream media, the legacy media that basically lies to your face every single day. They were fine to go out, but before that it had to be mail-in ballots. So why couldn't we figure this out? Well, it's the institutions and the powers that be know that Trump is something different. This brings me back to this the stream we had with Kizza a few weeks back. It was our second stream with Kizza, I believe. I started getting a little hot about the dude in the chat who was talking about, oh no, Trump's just a shill. He's in there to bring down, to bring in the financial collapse and da da da, the new world order plans. I'm like, dude, there is no freaking way. I'm like, this is a really good psyop if that is true. And I'll eat crow if that is true, but I don't think Trump has the best monetary policies and all kinds of stuff, but I just think it's so far out there because of how much hate this guy gets and how much these globalists and deep state people are against Trump. And so I guess my yeah, like my bigger point with all this is we could actually do something for the people of the United States and still be safe and have safeguards or whatever, even though I don't think the coop's that big of a deal. Um, but like no one wanted to. No one wanted to try. And they knew they've done everything to get Trump out of office and to tarnish him for 4 years. And they knew that this was their Hail Mary pass, as far as I'm concerned. Of course, it's all conspiracy, it's all speculative. And of course, according to the legacy media, there's no evidence whatsoever of election tampering, no election fraud, no evidence of impropriety, no evidence whatsoever. Yet I put on an hour-long video that I almost could not get through yesterday over on All Minus One that it was nothing but evidence and historical evidence from the last 20 years or 15 years at least of elections. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, I believe they were probably even rigged in 2016. They probably didn't
Oh, yeah.
want. They
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
didn't
yeah,
want.
yeah, yeah.
If you if we, of course, it was a huge upset and the underdog won. So I guess they wanted to like mind their p's and q's about it and not show their hand too much. And I almost wonder that they were not expecting to have to rig it as much as they did this election, and that's why it's flagging so hard. Um, because it does. It's so obvious that when only the swing states have to all of a sudden stop counting, because of whatever, and then take forever to tell you who won. Like they're still counting Arizona. Like how long does it take to count this stuff? They're like, oh, there's
Dude, the media would not certify Alaska.
yeah.
Alaska was not going blue, folks. So another telltale sign, bellwether states, that is
Mm-hmm.
states or counties, bellwether counties as well. Go over to danbongino.com. Go over to his notes. He has three irregularities from yesterday's show. I didn't watch today's show, but I do tend to catch his show, at least in passing, daily. Um, but he has a little article of some issues with that. They usually predict who wins. They didn't this time.
Mm-hmm.
It's odd. We know that only in the swing states Biden got historical turnout over both, not Trump, but over both uh, Hillary and Obama.
Yeah.
And only in those swing states, but nowhere else. Nowhere else. And Trump, I think, got historic turnout as well, if it wasn't for those fake votes. Now, if we can get rid of them, if they do whatever in court, we'll see. We'll see what happens, really. This is another big reason why I think there was such a fit. And right now it's kind of a meme with people who are right leaning or whatever, or moderates. But it's like this is why there was such a fit with the RBG thing. Maybe they weren't planning on that. Some people were saying this is why they changed their mind about mail-in ballots last minute. The Democrats, that is. But I think that that had more to do with the mail-in ballots, the registration and the turn-ins were in the early voting, were in favor of Trump highly. And again, how do you turn that around? Now, one of the things that the Democrats did take advantage of that wasn't necessarily a real issue was curing ballots. And that's when you basically get a ballot that isn't legitimate because there's a signature issue, whatever, and you get it to the person. You say, well, okay, are you the person who actually did this? Oh, okay, fix your vote. But there's a lot of accusations about how they've kept those and the chain of custody with those and all these things. And I just don't understand. Like, yes, the states have the rights to run their own elections. It's part of being within the union and part of states' rights. But why, when it comes to federal elections, don't we have at least some homogeneity of the system? Why can't we just have like a voter ID? And like a simple voter thing where you go, "Hey, here's my driver's license," and the left goes, "Well, they can't do this. Can't." Look, man, if you have to register to vote, you get a little card that says that you registered to vote and what party affiliation you are with your signature. That's ID, even though it doesn't have a picture on it. Um, but I would like to have a valid picture ID, considering you have to do that for everything.
Mhm.
Another quote I read yesterday was from Cenk Uygur, who supposedly believes that, oh yeah, the Republicans only want or complain about voter fraud when it doesn't exist, because again, like I'm paraphrasing right now, but basically well, because it hurts poor people. They know it hurts poor people, minorities, college students, and the elderly. It's like, so you're saying poor people, minorities, college students, and elderly folk don't have IDs? Because I don't have my wallet on me. Well, right here it is. Let's see. I got an ID right there. Hey, look at that. Like what? That's a student ID.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that having to have an ID. Okay, so if having to show your ID to vote is denying you your right to vote, then how is, you got to show your ID to buy a gun? Like, you don't really get to just walk in and be like, oh, let me buy this gun, and them say,
Well,
well,
dude, your right to vote isn't a constitutional right either.
yeah,
Technically, it's not. And the only way that you can be denied any rights is through due process. So you can't lose, according to the Constitution, and this has always been sort of the case. I don't completely agree with it, but you can't lose your rights with due process. You can still be enslaved under the Constitution under due process, um, legally, technically. Although I believe slavery is outlawed in other bills in the United States. Um, so yeah, man, I wholeheartedly agree with you. I mean, look, dude, if you are going to exercise your First Amendment right of the freedom of the press, in many situations, you need to have a press pass.
mhm.
Yeah, you can be independent media or journalism, but you might get arrested or you might get kicked out of an area, even though any citizen should be able to do journalism. Um, you have to give your ID up to police officers when you're pulled over, even though you have a right to due process. You can't be unlawfully search and seizure. You have to identify yourself.
Yeah.
So
Um, it's just
yeah.
it's just the idea that that having an ID is going to somehow disenfranchise. Like, you have to have an ID to get a prescription. You have to have an ID to buy a beer. You have to not,
Yeah.
have to have ID to do whatever. And now all of a sudden it's like, well, it's a little too much to ask someone to have an ID to vote. Like, there's no way around that. Then obviously you're planning on you're trying to make it as easy as possible to commit voter fraud. Like, that's what you're doing. It's as obvious as anything. Um, but like I said, like, kind of what we're going back before, all that's on the table. We know election rigging has happened. We know the steps that were taken to make it possible. We know all the telltale signs that's been shown. How do you put that genie back in the bottle now for future elections?
Well, let me outline three things real quick. I want to talk about enfranchisement. We can get there, but let's look at you're talking about putting the genie back in the bottle. That's not possible for this election. Doesn't matter who wins.
Right,
There's no
right.
confidence. No confidence. But we'll get to that in a minute too. Let's look at this. If we want fair elections, we need something to say, hey, with our technology in 2020, we can ensure one person, one vote. And I don't understand when you go to vote. So here in West Virginia, when I voted, much different than when I voted when I my first vote when I was like 19, where I had to pull a lever and all this stuff. I'm pretty sure that's the way it was back then, or punch a hole, whatever it was, something like that. We went to this whole like curtain thing, very private. Um, but now it's like this little computer thing, not as private, but people aren't going to see where you're voting at. There's a little tally, a little receipt thing scrolls up. I'm not that worried about my vote because my vote went where I wanted it to, anyways, as far as West Virginia goes. Like Kathy Kunkel, who was the AOC of West Virginia, got defeated. She's in my congressional district. Screw that lady. I don't need an AOC. She literally wanted to ban the right to work. Federal ban on right to work, meaning if there was a union in your area, you had to join the union.
Mm-hmm.
You had no right to work. Insane. In any case, she also wanted like all these bailouts for West Virginia because of her coal industry, and it was like the 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 rest of the United States has been taking from us forever, and therefore they should give back now. And it's like, no, it's not how that works. But in any case, um, like this little scroll thing went up, show me my vote, all that stuff. But why don't I get a receipt? Why can't I get like a unique barcode? Why can't I go back and check that and validate that in this computer error? Why isn't there some sort of blockchain or some sort of chain of custody that I know of? Why is it so complicated with all these people behind the scenes? And maybe I mentioned this a little bit last week, talked about it, but it's like, what in the hell is going on? Why can't we do this in an organized, easy way? Even though I have to go to a location to go do it, and I can't do it from my home. Why can't we figure this out in a very secure way that tracks everything, and I can go back and double check, and I can make a personal complaint? Like we're voting in a way right now where it essentially goes off into the ether, and we have to accept it based on what the media tells us, or the local government or the state government. And frankly, folks, I don't trust either one of them either. And that's not because I think they're all nefarious people, because I don't necessarily. I just believe that they're highly incompetent most of the time, which they are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know, man. You got any thoughts on that?
You know, even if you don't get into the huge like technology factor of it, it wouldn't be that hard to make voting more secure. And that you make your little voting slip or whatever, make them serialized. Each one of them has a serial number. You go in, you stick it in the thing, you pull a lever that punches two sides that's perforated, you get done, you rip it apart, you keep one side showing how you voted, you turn the other one in. It could be that easy. That would cut down a lot of issues right there. Um, but we don't do that. Like there's all these like, oh, there's different kind of pins, and there's got to read some scan trunk. Like ours, it's like we put it through like a scanner. Um, so who knows what happens after that? And then they could just they could tally the votes as they're coming in. You hand it to some guy, they count it, and then you would know. And of course you got to keep the chain of custody and everything, going on. And then when somebody comes to audit, it'll say, okay, well, it shows that you've got so many thousand votes for whoever. Let's see them. Like the IRS would do to you if they came to your house.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. No, that's the thing. Right.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah, 100%, dude. Well, and here's the other thing is like, why you'll hear so many people the guy talk about how folks are. And I do believe that people on the left tend to be very naive and tend to think that everyone is good unless you believe politically different from them. If you believe differently from them politically, you're not good. But generally they'll say, "Well, no, everyone's good. Everyone by nature, they're just good little sweethearts and they're so perfect." And it's like, have you ever met a child? You ever met a little child? They're not sweethearts unless they're taught to be, right? Unless they're disciplined. Um, uh, but the bigger point I'm trying to make is most people understand that there's a mix of good and bad people out there. Why are you going to leave your vote up in an age of technology to an individual person? One of the stories I covered yesterday was a random postal worker who was driving over to Canada and back. And upon his return on I think it's the Peace Bridge up in the Buffalo area, it's Buffalo, Syracuse, somewhere around there. Not super familiar, but um, he had personal mail in his car. A lot of it was campaign stuff. It was only 3 mail-in ballots, but he did say when he was caught with it, which by the way is a felony, that he may have done this up to 4 times. Now there was no other reasons why all this stuff happened, but we've seen mail dumps, we've seen this and that, we've seen whatever. Like, dude, I worked corrections for 13 years. Dude's coming to me all the time being like, "Where's my mail? Hey, CO, where's my mail? Where's my mail?" I was like, "Dude, I have nothing to do with your mail. Like, we don't mess with it. When it gets here, we bring it back. Oh, come on, man. You know, someone sorts it. They might not like me, blah, blah, blah." And this doesn't happen in every facility. It's different. Some people have mail rooms. Sometimes it's secretaries, sometimes whatever. But they made us, the security, do it, which was probably not the best. But I'm like, no, didn't throw it away. If I did throw something away, though, if I had to search it, we logged it. And there was a
Mhm.
reason why we threw it away. It's contraband.
Mhm.
Um, but maybe some people were lazy about it. But I will tell you this, that I had seen things go to the next town over, which is where all the mail was processed, and then down to Baltimore, 60 miles away, and then come back in the town. And I'd seen people talk about, "Oh, my girl got a letter 3 days ago and I never heard anything back." And it's like, well, I told her on the phone. She said she wrote me back. And it's like, well, dude, I don't know what to tell you. It's like the post office. We would distribute mail newspapers, and it's like the newspapers, sometimes the local newspaper company would not deliver proper newspapers.
Mhm.
There were issues, man. It was out of our hands. And that becomes a thing when you have a chain of custody thing, which is why in law enforcement or military, whatever, if you're trying to keep a chain of custody, you want to keep it as simple and as small as possible. You want to keep it very direct. And I don't understand why people have so much trust in the postal service. We know they're horrible. You know, UPS is bad, dude. FedEx is bad. I worked for FedEx. I was thinking about maybe going back for a little bit part time because they're talking. I mean, they're paying like up to $20 an hour or something right now.
Oh
I'm like,
yeah.
yeah, it's not bad cash.
Yeah.
Go work 20 hours a week, get some, get some lifting in. I mean, it kind of it is a fun job. If I had
Yeah.
jacked up my knee doing it, um, which is probably my own fault for just pushing too hard and not talking to my managers, but
Yeah.
um, it's like real life Tetris. Put it that way. It's like,
He's stacking stuff.
well,
Um,
they hire. The thing is, I was looking for a job, a temporary job. Uh, I was like in school, and it's like, well, I'm gonna need to get a job, and I'll find something better as it comes along. And I was like, this isn't too bad. My manager's like, oh yeah. They're like, oh man, you're really good. We'll probably make you a manager. I think you have to be there like 6 months or something. But I don't know. I was there like 3 months, and then I had jacked up my knees, and I don't know, climbing into trailers, getting out too fast, whatever it was. I'm old. Maybe that's what it was. Too much mileage, too much strain on my knees, too much rucking and stupid stuff, walking around on concrete for years.
but to kind of go back to the whole voter integrity thing, um, even without voter ID, there's a lot of ways we could fix our voting system. So I have to believe that it's designed to be shitty, right? Like the voting system is
Well,
designed.
who's had the power? Who's had the control for the last 100 years?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying Republicans have never rigged an election because there is evidence they have in the past. But who has the power? And who's the one saying no, no secure elections? Every vote must count.
Yeah.
No, every legitimate vote. Anyways, man, sorry I interrupted your
Well,
point there.
no, and that's going to be the issue. What you just said about the every vote counting is, if they do an audit and it goes the way it probably should go, then they're going to end up having to throw out some votes because they're going to be illegitimate, and that's going to be a shitstorm because you're going to have a group of people that believes that Donald Trump specifically sent in his minions to make sure that votes didn't get counted so that he could win, and you've got the other side that believes that you got a bunch of federal agents working that are trying to help out with a coup against Donald Trump. This is my opinion. Um, and they're going to try to make sure illegitimate votes stay in. So no matter how you slice this turkey, it's going to be shit. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and I don't know. In 4 years, let's say Trump wins, and in 4 years they run whoever. I imagine it's going to be another Trumpian candidate against, I don't know, AOC or whoever they run. How is anyone not going to go into this thing going, this is about to be fucked up? Um, like, how can you have any trust in this institution at this point?
Well, if Trump wins, what needs to happen is um, in my opinion, at least, a constitutional amendment, and that amendment being about voter ID for federal elections.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really care as much about the state elections or whatever. Like, if the states want to cheat the people in the states, I think it's far less likely. It's the fact that the federal government's so powerful, and the political party being the DNC is so powerful. Folks, the RNC is a weak mess. Let me tell you. And I know people that work in the RNC. Um, the RNC does not back their candidates very well unless it's in a district and uh, a big area where they're like, we know we can win and we can get someone special in who we know will play ball with us. It's very similar to the DNC, except for they're weak, and they really are. What is going on now and what Trump has done is he's kind of reinvented the party. Not totally, but just this populousness and this thing that says, hey, liberals, which I am one of, by the way. I'm a liberal, folks. Like I'm classical liberal. I'm not a bleeding heart liberal. Um, which is like, oh yeah, we have to give everyone a chance and all that stuff. I'm not a hippie, but I am a liberal. I'm very much a civil rights advocate. I'm very much a live and let live person, all that stuff. So as a classical liberal, or what people would consider themselves as liberal in the past, so many of them have come over to the Republicans that they've woken up from this Democrat nonsense narrative. And the other thing, if Trump wins, that needs to happen, it must happen, is this either antitrust against big tech or the revision and reworking of 230. And I'll tell you why. Because you have everyone right now out there, maybe other than YouTube, maybe, but of the big social media networks trying to censor people, including the president himself. And that's insanity, my friends. Absolute insanity. Um, we can't have that. Like, he's a public figure. Even Fox freaking News, which, by the way, I'm not a huge fan of. I kind of like Tucker. I'm not like Tucker's a moderate. He's a moderate conservative. He's kind of an elitist, kind of believes in the oligarchy, but he's also a little bit of a populist. I think he's concerned about the people a little bit, at least on the surface. I've never met Tucker. I've never, I don't know, but that seems to be his gig. But other than that, Fox News is, yeah, I mean, if it's just straight news content, usually pretty good. But we had Neil Cavuto the other day cut off Kayleigh McEnany talking about claims of fraud. And you go, oh, wait a minute. Unless she has some sort of substantial proof, we can't show that in good conscience. No. It's a press conference. You don't get to editorialize. This is insane the way these things are going. And this is the site, honestly, this is the cyberpunk fear of corporatism, folks. This is exactly what is going on in this nation. And this is where I can align with lefties as a very libertarian minded person. Um, I don't like heavy regulation, but a lot of what regulation is, if done properly, is just like, hey, here's just some basic rules. And we agree on these rules because it protects everybody, keeps everyone safe, keeps the flow of information, yada, yada, yada. So I'm not like a progressive, like, um, let's say Teddy Roosevelt or something like that. And I'm not a big government conservative like a neocon, who are basically Democrats anyway. So whatever, screw those guys. Um, like what I am though is a classical liberal who understands maximize freedom, and part of that is ensuring that companies don't encroach on your freedom just like your neighbor doesn't. So something that simple. But I don't know if Tank, you got anything else on that? Because if not, I kind of want to talk about enfranchisement a little bit.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Well, let me posit this question: Are you for universal enfranchisement?
No.
Huh?
No.
I knew what the answer would be, but
No,
can
I'm
you
not.
explain? Can you explain why or your thoughts on that a little bit?
Well, I'm kind of not for enfranchisement at all. but
Because you're a bit of a monarchist.
yeah,
Yes, yes, yes.
but okay, so there's a lot of people that don't really have skin in the game in terms of a democratic process, right? Um, if you're a net drain on society, and I'm not even holding this as a moral standpoint. Like I understand that people go through shit times. It could be me tomorrow, and I'd still hold the same opinion. But if you're a net drain on society, you know you shouldn't be voting. Um, if you
100% agree.
yeah
I mean, honestly, yeah.
you don't have the only thing you'd be voting for is because some politician promised you something that you probably don't need. Um,
It's funny. My wife actually said something to me earlier today about the going back to only landowners voting.
yeah.
And we're talking about a very libertarian minded woman who's
Hmm.
I've been making more and more conservative over the years. And don't get me wrong, like in my youth, I was actually more conservative and I've grown to be more liberal, but I also understand that the modern definitions of those things aren't exactly what people think they are.
Yeah.
In any case, continue, sir.
I don't necessarily think you have to be a landowner. But you should at least be like paying taxes. Um, I'd even go as far as say if you just own a car or you're making payments on a car, like that's enough for me. Um, Ideally, in my absolutely reactionary viewpoint of the world, any voting that takes place would be, someone with skin in the game and only be done by household. So the whole household votes one time instead of each individual person.
Yeah,
Um,
that wouldn't be a bad system.
yeah.
Although there would be an issue with tabulating households and stuff. Um, we did kind of talk about this a few weeks back. Unfortunately, guys, I haven't been watching the streams again. I was doing that in the beginning to some degree, and I just have not been so much because I'm like, yeah, okay, I kind of remember these conversations. But I'm pretty sure the week before the election or the 2 weeks before the election, we kind of talked about voting rights. And one of the things I saw that was interesting here recently was over on Black Pigeon Speaks on YouTube, talked about maybe waiting your vote a little bit, waiting it, depending on how much skin in the game. Like, okay, do you own land?
Hmm.
Are you married? Are you a business owner? That
Hmm.
kind of thing. No, I think that can again lead to this top heaviness because I own 20 businesses and I'm a multi-billionaire. Therefore, I get 5,000 votes.
Yeah, that's you're not
No,
gonna. You're not,
no, yeah, yeah. But
but if you're working a job, if you're gainfully employed, or whatever, whatever line you want to draw for who gets the vote and who doesn't, that's completely fine. Like I see nothing wrong with that. Um, Disallowing some people from voting, and then ideally for me, like I said before, it'd be a household. But even not the case, even if it's not like that, I just I don't really think that any system where everyone gets to vote is a good idea, and I think we're kind of proving that as we speak, right?
well, I mentioned uh, this idea before the stream, not even about everyone getting to vote, but the idea of the vote becoming actual democracy. This has happened. The Democrats have done this to the nation over the last 100 years. We're not a democracy. And I would agree with you. Democracy is bad. It's very bad. You read every writing of anyone who signed the Constitution and people who weren't necessarily involved, but they were on the periphery. They were all classically educated individuals. They knew history and they understood that the people who implemented democracy in the past, back in the Greek days and iterances of that throughout time, had horrible governments and they all led to tyranny in the end. Um, Democracy is not good, folks. Democracy is Tank and I deciding versus you that you're a turd and you should be taken out. It's that simple. Like we don't like you, therefore we're going to beat you up. That's democracy in the end. It's just mob rule. It's the majority versus the minority. And we have this interesting protection in this country that doesn't allow the tyranny of the minority either. And that is important. And that's where those checks and balances come in. I think that what we've needed to do over the years, over the decades, over the last century was to update that. And we failed in that. But the system has actually degraded because with the 17th Amendment, they've taken the right of the states to choose their senators and made it a popular vote. Now we're talking about taking the presidency away from the electoral college and making it a popular vote. And that's not good, folks, because there was a reason for the separations of power. Congress is a popular vote. The Senate's supposed to be the states. And then above that, both the popular vote and the states combined vote for the president. And these are the separations of power that we need to understand. And there's just so uh, there's just so much misinformation and poor education out there. I remember the last time I got my hair cut. I haven't had my hair cut in a while because it's like screw it. I'm just gonna let it grow out for a bit because I do that. But last time I got my hair cut, I remember the barber talking to me, and he's like, "I realized we didn't live in a democracy," and he was saying this like upset. He's like, "I realized we didn't live in a democracy when I found out about the electoral college." I'm thinking, okay, dude, but you don't want that. Now maybe you wanted Biden to win, but the reality is the only way Biden is winning right now, if these votes aren't legitimate, is because of certain urban areas outvoting the rest of the nation.
Mm-hmm.
The majority of the counties in the United States, like in 2016, are red. And that becomes a tyranny of the minority. And you might say, well, Biden has 77 or sorry, 77 million votes versus Trump's 72 million. Okay, but if those 77, the differentiation between that of 5 million votes is all in a few cities.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what's the population in New York City? 8 million, something like that.
Yeah.
I I don't know how big Chicago is, but I know LA's got like 10 or 12 million people in it, something crazy like that. Like, guys, like, think more clearly about this. And as far as enfranchisement goes, I don't know how to work this out. But one thing I do know, I don't want dead people voting. I don't want senile people voting.
Yeah.
And I don't want uneducated people voting. And much like you said, I don't want people that actually don't have any skin in the game voting. And I can speak to this from a professional and a personal perspective. Personally, I've tried to help out some people who have had hard times, and those people had no interest in helping themselves out. They just wanted to mooch. And I've seen it just over and over again professionally, where there are people that just get ingrained in the system and they actually expect the system to take care of them. I had a guy I knew. I used to go out and shoot pool a lot all through my 20s. Started shooting pool in my teens. After I got out of the Marine Corps, shot pool a lot, got pretty good at it. Never went league or anything like that, but I always shot against league players. It was more like friendly and could beat them and all that kind of stuff. But I knew a guy who got locked up in the county jail from pool. Well, as standard go, you can make no new relations, but if it's someone you knew before, it's not a big deal if you see them again outside of work, that kind of thing. So he got out. The guy had, I guess, a drug problem at some point, and again, it's not like a close acquaintance of mine, but he was in jail for about, a year and a half, something like that. I'd see him, I have to work the tier, that kind of thing. And he would, talk to me on occasion, but those kind of relationships you generally don't make known to everyone in
Mm-hmm.
the jail for various reasons,
Mm-hmm.
on both sides of the spectrum. And of course, I'm a honest guy. I don't give people special favors because I know them or anything like that. But he got out, and I think he went to the state prison for a little while. But he got out, and I remember giving him a ride home because he lived like 2 blocks away from me, and he's living with his folks who owned a restaurant that had an apartment above it. And he told me on the way home, he's like, "Well, do you want anything to eat?" Because we stopped off at Sheets or something like that. It's a local gas station for people who aren't in my region, and they have food and stuff. And he's like, "Oh, I just put it on my EBT card." And I'm like, "You have an EBT card?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, they give all you gotta do when you get out of prison, you just gotta apply for it. So Maryland pays for your food." "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, isn't it great?" I'm like, "Why do you deserve that?" "Well, I mean, they lock me away." And I'm like, "Yeah, but you break the law." "Yeah, but man, like I don't have anything. I gotta start over." And I'm like, "Well, that's what your friends and family are for." "Well, but I don't have a lot of them." "Well, whose fault is that?" Like, it's that kind of stuff. And I'm like, and this guy wasn't the worst guy I've ever known. I was never close with him or anything. I just, like I said, I knew him from shooting pool, but he lived literally on my way home, like 2 blocks, 3 blocks away from me. So I gave him a ride. And I didn't, when I would shoot pool, I'd only have like 2 or 3 beers, over the hours I was shooting pool. And so I was happy to give someone a ride. And he's like, "Well, don't you think that the government should provide you with a house or something or a home or an apartment to live after you get out of jail?" And I'm like, "No." He's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, I don't have anything. I'm starting all over again." I'm like, "Who made that choice? Why is the government responsible for your stupid choices?" And this is always going to be my something I come back to. I had a conversation on Reddit a little while back, which I don't get into very often, but every now and again I'll throw something out there with all these tech people talking about how much money they make, and I was basically like, "Why?" It's like, "Look, man, most people that I know that are poor, they're poor because of bad decisions." I'm like, "Every now and again you have hard luck." Like I had hard luck a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I had to renegotiate my mortgage. I was also bad with the money I had saved up. Like, admittedly, I didn't ration it out as well as I should have, and I know that. Um, but then I got injured too, and I couldn't work, and that sucked. I collected not a dime from the government though either during that period. I had friends and family help, and I renegotiated my mortgage, and I got a job and got back on top. And I guess my point is I'm willing to do that for myself. Would I be ashamed if I took government assistance? No. But my bigger point is there are people that just will go through the system over and over again, and they think, "Well, I'm owed something. Well, the government should do this for me. Well, they should take care of me." It costs $30,000 a year, about ish. Maybe that number's changed to house an inmate. Was it? I think after 20 years, they're a million. They've cost $1 million. To make $30,000 a year, pretty much in any state's pretty decent if you're at least single,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
My first wife, I young and out of the Marine Corps, had not the best job immediately, and I was making about 25 grand a year, and I had two stepkids and a wife, and I had a baby along the way, coming along the way.
Yeah.
Don't talk to me about poverty or anything like that, or pulling yourself up by the bootstraps. I know, like I'm a literal blue collar guy, folks. I've done this my whole life. I
Mm-hmm.
know. I've been in the dregs. It doesn't matter what I read, how philosophical I am. Doesn't matter how smart I might be. Whatever. I'm just not. I mean, I have my nerdy things, but I'm a blue collar guy. I don't ever expect to make a ton of money on anything. Um, I just want to do what I want to do. I want that amount of freedom. but I don't expect society to say, "Hey, because you exist, here's some money. Here you go. You get to live." So, I don't know, man. Uh, Pretty sure I've ranted long enough on that.
No, no, you're right. I agree. I agree and I disagree in one way, and that is, yeah, society doesn't owe you anything. I don't think they do, but that's it's easier to have a functional society with those kind of social programs now because our family structure has been completely dilapidated over, modern society has set us up to where it's like you want to give this ex felon or this felon EBT, or you want him to start stealing again. Now, granted, the EBT might not stop him from stealing. I know I've seen that happen too, but I can kind of see the justification there.
It won't. I mean, I worked in a county system where we would let guys go, been in jail for a year and a half, and because that's max sentence unless you get consecutive,
Yeah.
non-felony, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and then get arrested and be back in jail 4 to 6, 8 hours later, literally on the same shift.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a problem. That's a big fallacy on the left. Is this idea? Don't get me wrong. I totally believe in redemption and that people can change. I just believe that it's rare, and I believe that you have to prove it. I totally believe that felons should have the right to vote once they're out of jail, if they're not felons anymore, if they don't keep committing crimes,
Yeah.
or should get their Second Amendment rights back, all that stuff. You think, well, I think the right to self defense is just fundamental to all things. The right to property and self defense. Like, there's essentially three things that you have a right to, and that's your life, your property, and your liberty to go about your way, as long as you don't infringe upon other people. So that's the trifecta of kind of the libertarian, non-interventionalist, non-aggression principle. But in order to keep peace within society, we set up certain rules, and everyone kind of agrees. And I'm not a huge social contract guy either, but in my experience, most people take advantage of the system. Most people don't improve themselves. It would be a lot more motivating to improve yourself if you were down on your luck.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I know there'd be people in despair and they'll commit suicide and those things will happen. I'm not saying we should let that happen. I'm also saying though the way that we go about it now, it doesn't work. And the reality is that mutual aid societies took care of most of the stuff. Churches took care of most of the stuff in the past, and they actually do to this day a lot better job, charities than government. But the real reason why we do this whole welfare and EBT thing is uh is based on the Gini coefficient, and that we don't want income instability, income inequality over a point 0.4 or 40%. And as that happens, society becomes more violent. So we're
Mm-hmm.
literally paying off poor people not to revolt and be violent. And that's a
Yeah.
sad, sad, weak society. And it's not a society that I think has any like real merit to continue. It's just going to fall apart. In fact, if we look at things historically, it will fall apart. This happened in Rome.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, I'm with you on that, and that we definitely need to help people help themselves if that's what we're going to do. Um, but I mean, but the same kind of policies we have for felons and stuff are written by the same bureaucrats that come up with voting laws. Like, they're not the people we need that need to be in charge of this stuff. We got guys in prison or whatever, and they do their job programs, but their jobs that don't exist when they get out. So whoopsie do, you learned how to do this thing or whatever. But
but, well, and,
yeah,
and a lot of the problems, the system too, man.
yeah,
Like we have a legal system. We don't have a justice system. That
mm-hmm.
is important to understand.
Yeah,
Um, what is it? Why can't I think of it? Oh, what is it when you can an Alfred plea? You can currently, because of the legal system, you can currently put in what's called an Alfred plea, which means you don't admit guilt, but you say that there is enough evidence against you that the state can convict you. Now, usually those people are guilty. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. However, what what actually happens when you're prosecuted? Well, I'll tell you. And having been involved in some court cases and whatever else, even being on jury duty, but also working within the system, they go and they throw everything at you. They don't generally, like a cop will arrest you, right? If they think you broke the law, you go to a commissioner or a magistrate, depending on the system of the county or state that you live in. But they'll decide about bond or if you're released on personal recognizance or any of that kind of stuff. Well, generally, though, if you're arrested, it's because the cop decided to arrest you. And a cop actually doesn't need to be justified to arrest you. He can just arrest you. It's an unfortunate thing in this nation because it's this growing, smallly growing, encroaching police state that we have going on. But you go in, and then the district attorney, all that, they decide, well, oh, we're going to prosecute this person or not. Well, what's the charges? Oh, we'll go down. Well, they don't want a loss. Now, if it's not a big deal, they might just let you go. They might just let it go. There might be a few legal loopholes, whatever you can get through. But generally, if it's like a bigger kind of crime, even if they don't have a ton of evidence against you and they can sort of finger you, they will.
Mhm.
And it doesn't matter. Once they get that taste of blood, they will go after you. And there are cases, it is not huge, it's not a huge percentage, but much like voter fraud, there are cases that have happened that have been proven where people are completely innocent. And the state's attorney, district attorney, whatever, has gone after them full force, kept them in jail for years, and they turn out to be completely guilty. I remember seeing one case, I used to watch a lot of 48 Hours mysteries back in the day. I remember seeing one case particularly where this kid was on a trip with his like family in Bermuda or something like that. And actually he had a picture with a newspaper held up. And like they had to submit this in court like a year and a half later. Because trust me, folks, if there's a big trial, it's like a murder trial, anything huge, anything big, it's going to be like a year and a half to 3 years that you're sitting in jail before your trial comes. Um, which is, by the way, a violation of your Fifth Amendment rights, but whatever. Um, or is that Sixth Amendment? I get me into the things off the top of my head I can't think of. Anyways, but you're right to a swift and speedy trial. It is not 3 years. Um, or even a year and a half at that. I'd say 6 months max. But this goes back to we don't have a justice system anymore. We have a legal system. So this guy gets the book thrown at him, gets thrown in an interrogation room, admits to this murder of this young girl. And if I remember correctly, it was some brutal murder where they like gave her like a tire necklace, which is basically they put her in a bunch of tires and lit it on fire and all this stuff. Totally disgusting. I'm trying to recall something I saw like 10 years ago or more, but I'm pretty sure this was the case. And turns out this kid wasn't very strong minded. They badgered him till he confessed, came up with a bunch of false memories, whatever else, didn't know this girl. But the guy that actually murdered her is the one that fingered the guy that was in jail for a year and a half or 3 years or however long in the first place before his trial. And this happens all the time in the United States. So this is an illegal system issue. This is a legal system issue. This is an issue with the system and the corruption of the system and just getting easy wins. This is a Kamala Harris issue, right? She did this herself.
Yeah.
I mean, look, man,
Yeah.
there are cases.
Yeah.
I freaking covered this on All Minus One, dude. Like this, yeah, that is number two, right? I covered this talking about Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, or just Kamala Harris. I don't even remember. This was a couple weeks back of who she is. And one of the guys that was held for murder, that she wouldn't let evidence, like in his favor, be released. One of these guys that sat in jail for years until it finally, after appeal was released, is still going to vote for her and Joe Biden
Mm,
because they're
that's
not Trump. Trump's just evil. It's like, dude, that woman just held you in jail for like 5 years of your life, and you were
mm,
innocent. And don't get me wrong, dude was dumb as hell. Anyways, like
yeah,
you
well,
just listen to him speak, but that's kind of my point. Like, that's what we're going after here, folks. We're going after emotions. and nothing against that guy, whatever. Like you can be dumb and have a great life. Have fun. Do your thing. But you're gonna vote for the person that locked you up and wouldn't allow evidence, and you think that that's a qualified person to run the government?
Yeah,
So to your point, with like you can see that there's issues, you can see where someone have this perspective, we should take care of these people, whatever. Yeah, but look how screwed up the system is.
oh
Is
yeah.
is
I mean, that's
you
the
know?
ideally you want the good old days, or what however you want to judge that, where we had actual community who were not alienated individuals who were relying on this bloated, corrupt bureaucracy to mitigate our interactions with each other. But that's where we're at, and to your point on corruption, it's huge, especially in the justice system, especially in investigate, like just with this thing with Project Veritas the other day. I think they played it today, where they show the whistleblower UPS guy, the freaking feds come in there and start like MK Ultra in his ass with some you know mind control shit.
They released the basic part of that last night around
Mm-hmm.
8, and
Yeah,
then the whole video today. What's interesting about that is that I think the Washington Post and the New York Times have both said this guy is recanted,
yeah,
and he's not recanted at all. And again, like I'm nobody, guys. I'm not involved with any of this, but I do know I have met James. I'll put it that way. I've been to the Veritas headquarters, whatever else. Um, not besties with him. I've had very brief conversations with him, but as far as I can tell, as far as I know, as much slander as James gets, like he is obsessed with exposing and telling the truth.
mm-hmm.
And he loves giving it to these big media corporations and whatever else that are lying to you. And you have to understand that these legacy media corporations are lying to you. Um, you know what the issue is, dude? It's Dunbar's number.
Yeah.
Are you
Oh
aware?
yeah,
Are you
yeah.
aware of Dunbar's number?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyone who's not, that is an anthropologist who basically did some studying based on primate brains and whatever else, and essentially discovered that human beings can have about 150 close associations in life, and that's it. Anything more than that is not good. And a small village back in the day was about 150 people. I would wager that even though my neighborhood is not that big, my parents' neighborhood's even smaller, but I would wager they probably have 150 people or more in their neighborhood. My neighborhood's probably a few thousand.
Mm-hmm.
Um, man, I barely know just the people living around me,
Mm-hmm.
and then of course I have my family itself, my extended family, all the friends and acquaintances I've met over the years, and people I randomly talk to, keep in touch with, whatever. But we're on this whole scale of tribalism that's way outside of Dunbar's number.
Yeah.
150 people? Like I could get it if you were tribal and you're talking about, okay, my neighborhood right now, probably a couple, I don't know. Let's say there's 2,000, 3,000 people, maybe 5,000 people that live in my neighborhood. Like that's way outside the number. But like how like we could have a community. You want to tell me that my county and then my state and then the federal government is going to represent me properly and appropriately when I don't even have a voice, really, except for this little vote that doesn't really even necessarily count because we can rig voting at any point and whenever we want.
Right. So
Like
so
the problem with our government isn't the lack of democracy. I think it's democratized just enough and starting to go the wrong way with too much democracy. The problem with our government is that it's top down and it's never meant to be that way. And that's why in past podcasts we've done or streams we've done, whatever, I've talked about how I want more separation. I want city states. I want regional control. Um, I want like regional coalitions of states or counties or something. I want more checks and balances. I want more bureaucracy, not in the form of agencies, but in the form of levels of government and grievances that I can go to. Whoa, we just cut off there
Yeah,
on
my cat walked across the keyboard
okay.
and hit the. Yeah, we're good. We're fine. It just we just
All right.
um no, yeah, you're right, and I think there's two issues at play. Um, One, I don't even know that it's a matter that we've gone beyond Dunbar's number in terms of our. I think that's part of it, but part of it is also that we're so alienated. Even
Yes.
even within our own communities, we're so alienated. We don't like. We might not even like our neighbor. Um, and then you have the system that's supposed to mitigate. How we deal with each other. Our government, and they're not. If they fuck up, they're not held accountable. There is no accountability in our government. Like it does not happen. Like the guys that they're talking right now, they're saying that they're worried about Trump pulling us out of Afghanistan prematurely. We've been there for 20 years. The people that put us there need to be
Yeah.
fucking like. I mean, I'm gonna edit myself
Okay.
before I start Fed posting, but but you can see
Let
something
me
going with this.
explain. Let me explain something from personal experience. No, I never was in Afghanistan, but I was on a MEU in the Marine Corps. That's a Marine Expeditionary Unit, Special Operations Capable. As an infantryman, was there in the Indian Ocean,
Mm-hmm.
about ready to go into Afghanistan. We were supposed to do there was supposed to be an army change of command, and therefore we were going to set up security and do whatever. It didn't happen. I don't know. That's higher up stuff. Got lost in the weeds of things. That was in 2002. All right. I will be 40
Mm-hmm.
in February. It's been 20 freaking years, like you said,
Yeah,
almost
yeah.
20. So it's been a long freaking time, guys. What war have we been involved in this long in any historical context of America? Zero.
Mm.
Zero. None.
Yeah, but so and the people that put us there, that's done this, that's kept this going, they're not held accountable. So not only we're dealing with this alienated nature of the modern world, but the people who could fix it more or less are not of the faculties to do so.
Well, and this is also why Trump needs to win. And this is why he needs to fight in court and everything else. I would completely have turned 360 against Trump if I believed the rigging was in the opposite direction,
Yeah.
actually. Like, I need that to be clear. I'm a very principled guy. I mean, at some point, almost everyone sells out their principles, whether it's through torture or, their wife's in danger or their child or something, or it's money. I don't think you can buy me off, but um, because I really don't care about being rich. I just want to do my own thing and be honest. But the reality is that look, I'm human. Is my point. But I'm not. My problem is this is literally the system saying, no, you're breaking down our power and control. Trump cannot be president because if he's president for 4 more years, we will have lost everything that we have developed for the last 100 years. And
Good.
that's not fully true, but it will set them back a lot.
Yeah. I
And
hope I hope
one
he
of the
does.
things, go
Yeah,
ahead.
that's what when I read that he was, what was it he did? He got rid of some guys in the CIA. Was it the CIA? Anyway, so blue check
The
Twitter.
FBI, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
FBI. So blue check Twitter was losing their friggin' minds today because they're like, Trump has decapitated most of the civilian leadership within these government. I'm like, good, good. He ran on draining the swamp. Like I feel like he's done it too late. And here they are saying
I
that.
think he had a lot of roadblocks. I
Yeah, for
think he could have
sure.
done better, but he's had a lot of roadblocks.
But they're like, oh, he's getting rid of all these high up officials. Blah blah. I like that makes me so erect. Like I just can't. Like it's like that's just that's what I want. That's what we need.
We
Um,
want patriots. We want
yeah,
guys like General Flynn, folks. Look into General Flynn's history. He's a good guy. You know why he got indicted? because they threatened his son, and he decided to perjure himself so they wouldn't go after his son.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I was talking about. I have a ton of integrity, but he didn't want that to fall on his child. And that's exactly what I was talking about. This is how bad the deep state is. And we know that they did this, and people are still denying it. And it's insane, man. It's insane. Anyways, hold this thought. I want to keep it there. I need to use the bathroom,
Okay.
dude. I know we're getting close to an end, but I need to go.
Okay.
So, yeah, we can be right back, or you can carry it along. It's up to you.
I'll go to the restroom myself.
All right, guys. We'll be right back. Oh, wow, you beat me for once. I'm usually talking smack by this point.
No, that's good. That song we have for the break is really dope. I was kind of rocking out.
Oh yeah. Do you have us muted during the break? Because you didn't before. So
I didn't have us muted that time. So.
well, I don't care because I always, whenever I get back before you, I always talk trash.
Yeah.
So
No,
which
I've never. I don't think I've ever muted us during a break.
okay, well, I didn't think so, but I don't know because I can watch the stream, but I don't have the volume turned up. I was just curious. Um. So, anyways, folks, excuse us for drinking on stream. This is number 2 for me. What are you down on the bottle there?
I've been sipping. It's not too bad.
Just I'm gonna have to rewatch this tonight. See where we started. All right, but yeah, man. So what were the things? This was a long rant ago. When I talked about I wanted to get into franchisement and who should be enfranchised or not. And I
Hmm.
don't think everyone should. Um, I also think that, by the way, I really hate the feminist arguments about enfranchisement because you have to realize feminists that most men couldn't vote until about 50 years before you could. So let's not talk nonsense. Oh, for 50 years, women couldn't vote. Yeah, for all of eternity, women couldn't vote, neither could men. And there were plenty of powerful women all throughout history, like just like there were plenty of powerful men. That wasn't the norm for 99.99999% of all people. Most people were practically slaves the entire history of humankind. So let's get that straight. Um, but yeah, I talked about that. I was saying about trusting the vote, whatever. I guess we got to it without me talking about it directly. Do you have any thoughts or anything you wanted to bring up specifically?
So I I'm still kind of racking my brain on this whole. I the genie's out of the bottle. Um, I think if Trump wins, then it'll be better. Because we'll have
It'll be better for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
better for people's trust in the. I'm also a little upset because here I was I've been talking shit for a long time about how terrible democracy is, but now that I know it's dead, it kind of hurts my soul a little bit. So I don't. but but so if Trump wins, I feel like we'll have 4 years of shit talking on Twitter that people will have to get over it and reaffirm their trust in our institutions enough that there will not be a civil war. If Biden wins, I don't want to get completely blackpilled, but where do you go? You have an election that's obviously rigged. Biden wins. What does a red-blooded American do at this point? How do you?
Biden is going to be held back though by the House, and we'll see where Georgia goes, but the Senate. And
If you trust those motherfuckers, I mean, do you?
well, I'm just saying. Look, I mean, you're right to some degree, but one, it's not going to be Biden. So let everyone be very clear on this. Biden is not your president or president elect or whatever the hell they're saying. First off, he's not been certified in any way, shape, or form. But if he is certified, he's not your president. And Kamala Harris isn't your president either. It is all of the team and the people
Mhm.
behind them. You have to understand, like, we need a reality check on how things really work. Trump is not a puppet president. They try to use him. If Trump was a puppet president, he wouldn't have had all the problems he had over the years with his cabinet. They wouldn't have tried to impeach him. They wouldn't have said that he's all these horrible things that he's not. There's absolutely no proof that he's a racist. He's obviously not a warmonger. Um, there's no proof that he's trying to destroy democracy or anything else that they're saying. He's within the system, using the system, and um, trying to be a populist and trying to bring about good for the American people. No, I'm not saying that everyone has the same goals either.
Mhm.
Um, but generally speaking, you know, unless you want the government coming to your house and holding your hand and wiping your butt and giving you money and putting the spoon in your mouth, like what more could you ask? He's just saying, "Hey, let's free up some stuff so that Americans can do better economically. And let's get rid of this crazy stuff that undermines our institutions like intersectionality and that kind of nonsense. Let's not lock people up for 20 years because they had some pot on them or whatever it was." And you could see the conservatives too going crazy. I think I still was watching Ben Shapiro a little bit regularly when he passed the crime reform bill. What's it called? Um, Whatever it is, he's released people from prison, from jail
Yeah.
again. And guys like Shapiro and Michael Knowles and whatever else, the conservative Inc., as they're called in some circles, they were like, "I don't think it's such a great idea." Da, 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 da. It's like, I don't think it's a great idea to let violent criminals on the streets, but most people probably just shouldn't be locked up that are locked up. There's a lot of
Yeah.
people that are locked up that shouldn't be locked up. Um, and that's an issue. And you could say, "Well, Bill, that's your libertarian side." And it's like, yeah, yeah, it is. You know why? Because most of the stuff that people get locked up for today, for like 150 years plus of the United States, they never got locked up for. It wasn't until after the progressive era. And that's what happens. That's why you get gulags with leftism.
Mhm.
That's why you
Yeah, I
get
mean,
concentration camps with leftism.
yeah, really back in the day if you want to get locked up, you either had to like piss off somebody in power or do something pretty shitty. Or
So
be
you had to murder
Yeah.
somebody, rape somebody, be an outright thief, right? An arsonist, like, literally. We didn't have any drug laws until the progressive era.
Mhm.
No one got locked up for that stuff. Yeah, we had problems. People went to opium dens and stuff like that, but that was their problem. I mean, hell, I'm drinking beer right now. How much crime did alcohol create when they implemented prohibition?
Yeah.
Organized crime specifically. That's why we have the NFA today. That's why we have the FBI today. That's why we have all this government bureaucracy today. Because some stupid progressive group somewhere, mostly ugly women, I don't care how sexist that sounds, whatever. It was. You can look at the pictures. They're like, these lips won't touch lips that taste alcohol. It's like no one wants to touch those lips anyways, ladies. Sorry to tell you. But um, but you had all these people trying to push this moral authority on folks. And guys, I believe in moral authority 1,000%. That comes from society, in the church, and from your neighbors and your parents, not from the government. And when they put that onto people, guess what happened? Give people power to enforce morality. Guess what happens? Oh, oh, you lock a bunch of people up. Oh, you have all these laws that all of a sudden restrict freedom. Oh, you have all these people suddenly going to jail. You have the IRS created. You have all of the things that they will get people on because you know what? They have all the guns and they have all the power. And that's not a free society. And yeah, there's no completely free society without government. Like, I'll grant you that. But giving government control is just the more control you give to them, the more slavery you put yourself in. And this is always going to be my fundamental argument, of course, against the socialist and the communist, because that relying on a master, the government itself, makes you a slave. Well, we can go back to Nietzsche and the master slave morality, and he essentially speaks of it, in the beginning of his long series of books on morality. And in any case, got anything on that tank?
You know, I guess we're kind of circling the same themes here about where we're at. I'm hoping so. Here is my hope, my white pill as much as I can get one for the situation. I want. I feel like a lot of like basic normie conservatives, like people like my dad, um, don't really understand where power comes from. Like he ultimately trusts our institutions, and I'm hoping that from this, now that everyone is gonna see that this election has been rigged, which is gonna get us kicked off YouTube, um, that he realizes that these institutions are not trustworthy. Um, I
It's
think
a good
that's a
thing.
yeah, but I think that's a big step for a lot of people. Like I think most of your Ben Shapiro listeners ultimately have faith in the United States. Um,
Yeah.
it's like what Moldbug said. Every regime in the history of the world has said it's going to last forever, and none of them ever have. So, I don't want to get completely black pilled. I'm not saying start stocking up with our beanie weenies, but I think it's worth mentioning that we might have to start looking at a lifeboat from where we're at. As much as we all love America, and as much as we remember all of our history lessons about the Constitution, how great of a document it is, it might not come save us.
Well, dude, I mean, I've seen this with my own parents. I remember saying back to maybe 2006 ish, 2007, telling my parents about the Federal Reserve Bank,
Yeah.
and my dad arguing, "Oh no, no, that's not a private bank. No, no, it's the government. Ask your brother-in-law." And I'm like, "No, it's not. It's a private freaking bank. Has nothing to do with the federal government. The federal government has oversight. They don't have
Yeah.
oversight, folks. That's a lie. They have some people in the government that basically go, "Oh, what are you guys doing? Hey, you mind telling me?" They don't have any real oversight. Otherwise, the Fed could be audited easily. Um, but in any case, and now where I'm seeing like my mom, who by the way used to work for a very big telecommunications company, corporate leadership, and worked with spooks. Um, you know, it doesn't not a fan of guys like Snowden and stuff like that. Very, very different. Where I see my mom coming around,
hmm
um, and understanding the difference. Where she told me the other week about, I have a problem with a lot of the regular old kind of Republicans, this and that. And I'm like, Mom, I've been saying to you for years, neocons, and you've
hmm
come to me and be like, well, what are neocons? How do you not know this? Like, why are you even voting if you're this
Yeah.
unaware? And I get it. People think that they're aware, but that's that legacy media propaganda trance that's put upon you. This is what's going on. Trust us, trust us. And honestly, I think this is built out of the progressive era. And I know I always go back to it, but I don't know how else to look at it, guy, because it's as simple as this. That's really when the art of propaganda started coming about. It's really when the fascism, the socialism, whatever you want to call it in the United States started coming about. The leftism, we'll just call it that because they're both leftist perspectives. And you can look at something like Edward Bernays's book Propaganda. You can look at um, H.G. Wells's An Open Conspiracy or the New World Order, which all came out in this era, right before the Second World War, and they're all talking about how we need a global government, how we need to mold the minds of human beings, to dictate to them how they should think, and we are the righteous people that get to tell them what to do, and it's like that has nothing to do with 1776, has nothing to do with the current Constitution of the United States. Has nothing to do with the destiny this country was supposed to be set upon. Don't get me wrong. Excuse me. There's some interesting dark things there. Remember we talked about conspiracies a few weeks ago, and I sent you a bunch of links. I don't know how many of those you've explored.
Just a few. Yeah, I've
Uh,
only got to glance at them.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But um, like there's some interesting side history. Some of it's proven, some of it's not. Whatever. The real point being is that, like, folks, this is a battle about globalism and centralized control over your life versus freedom, living the way that you want to live. And make no mistake, Republican or Democrat, anyone against Donald Trump, even if they are so in ignorance, um, they're globalists. They don't care about keeping things within Dunbar's number. They don't care about keeping things local and in the ground up. They want to dictate to you how to live. And I mean, literally, if you read the things that they say, and they've been writing about it for a long time, and you look at with a critical eye, look at the things that they do, and get out of your mind that nonsense that, oh no, the government has the best in mind for me. Like, you're a child. Seriously. I'm not trying to be a jerk, but like, you're a child if you think that. These people have insane amount of power. An insane amount of power. Think about what people say about the United States. We're the most powerful nation in the world. We have the largest military. We have the greatest economy. All of these things. You think that those at the top don't have power to manipulate the rest of the world or to dictate to you what to do? And that's always where I'm going to come from. I'm always, I'm highly individualistic, highly decentralized. I mean, in my leadership style, whether it was in the jail, in the military, whatever it was, anywhere I've ever worked, very decentralized. Yeah, well, I'll tell you what to do, the parameters, what I expect of you. Of course, go do your own thing. I remember sitting around with Marines and being like, okay, we're going to do this, 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 and that. Had this whole plan laid out in my head, and someone was like, Corporal, we got what about this? And I'm like, dude, that's way less complicated and way easier. Let's do it. It's like, it's that simple. It's just letting go of your ego and understanding what's efficient and what's not. And the system we're in is not efficient unless you're Joe Biden. And you're going to be going into the vice presidency with a net worth of $37,000, according to CBS News, and come out being a multi-millionaire.
Mm. Must be nice.
It must be. It must be. I don't know, man. I don't have much else to say. We
No,
going
that
off where we go off.
yeah, that's pretty good. We hit a lot of topics there. I think it'll set us up good for next week. We'll see how it goes, and maybe we can actually talk about a different topic.
We can, but this ain't done.
Yeah.
This isn't over until this isn't over until the 14th, in my opinion. 14th of December, when the electorate must get
Hmm.
together, or the state delegations, or however it's going to go.
Yeah.
Hopefully it ends in court. Before we sign off, we amazing music gave us a lemon, so thank you. I haven't been watching the chat too much, um, but like to shout out anyone who starts following us or props us up, or whoever. So appreciate it, guys. You got anything else, Tank?
No, that's it for me.
All right, guys. Well, before we get off here, just to remind you, the ends justify the memes every Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Usually do about 2 hours. Talk about whatever we feel like from our heterosexual Christian white male perspective from the American South. And hey, guys, we appreciate you watching. If you watch, we're still building. Haven't been at this very long. If you want to watch our replays, they're only here on D Live for a little bit. Go over to YouTube. You can find us there. The ends justify the memes. And you can find me at all minus one on YouTube. Hank, Tank. I don't know why I wanted to call you Hank there. Tank, you don't have any other side projects, right? Not yet.
Just my OnlyFans.
Just what? You only
Just
that's
my
right.
OnlyFans, yeah.
So you can look up Tank on onlyfans.com. Or is it OnlyFans or fans only? It's OnlyFans,
I
right?
don't. Yeah, it's OnlyFans.
Okay, okay. You can look him up. Either way, who knows what he's doing there? Some crazy, crazy stuff, apparently. But, anyways, I hope you all are staying sane. And guys, don't let the legacy media manipulate you. Go out there, search out people. And with that, this has been the ends justify the memes. And remember that the ends always justify those memes. You can play that outro, brother.
I'm talking about all the way to the top, yeah. Unjustifiably in a position that I'd rather not be in. But the